Hello and welcome to the aForm show. My name is Alan George and thank you very much for tuning in. Each week, we sit across from thought leaders and change makers in the architecture and design space of the GCC. We dive deep into their experiences, both professionally and personally, and share their valuable insight as to what makes them tick. Our goal is to add value to your day and help you navigate your own personal creative journey. Finally, the opinions and the views of the guest speakers are that of their own. They do not necessarily represent the views and the opinions of the show or the host. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today, we have someone really special with us. Someone who, in all honesty, he doesn't know this, but he's been on my guest list for quite a while. And finally, it's been a bit of back and forth, but now we have this awesome person with us. I'm talking about nobody else than Mahmoud Shahin, with over 1.5 decades of experience across the region with a diverse portfolio. We are joined by my good friend Mahmoud Shahin from P&T Architects and Engineers. Mahmoud has worked on a diverse range of projects across the AME and APAC regions. He is known for his architectural flair and attention to detail. He is able to design and deliver projects successfully with the key understanding of engineering systems and foresight to potential roadblocks. Over the years, Mahmoud has transitioned into promoting the design side of the business and has demonstrated fantastic leadership skills with multiple size teams. We are excited to unpack this episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Good morning, Mahmoud. How are you?
Good morning to you. I'm very well. Thank you, Alan. I'm excited to be part of this podcast, and I've been following it for quite some time. So it's truly a pleasure to be part of it.
Awesome. Cool. So you are, like I said in the intro, someone who I wanted to have on the show for a while, because unlike a lot of our other guests, you've actually been in this particular industry, in Dubai specifically, for quite a while. And therefore, that was my starting point. And I want to get you to sort of take us back a bit. If any of the designers listening were here back in 2006, 7, before, of course, the Great Crisis, as we all call it, happened, Dubai was a very different place for designers. So, Mahmoud, I want you to maybe walk our listeners through that period of time. What was Dubai like if you were an architect in 2005?
I have to say this is a very good starting point, because somehow it marks the start of my career. It's the time where I moved from my home country, come to Dubai, young architect with relatively no experience. And then I come here and I see all of these beautiful ideas. It basically felt like a playground. It was, everything was experimental, dream big, everything is possible. And even the things that we thought it's impossible, the developers were really pushing hard to get this place to be seen by the world as the place where things happen. And for a young architect, it was a dream coming true. I've seen master plans that I wouldn't have thought they would possibly happen. I've seen reclaimed land in the water of such size that I don't think it happened before in such depth. Maybe shorelines, yes, but not in like the Palm, for instance. Mega high rises, and most importantly, how the design and the will of the developers pushed the construction industry to evolve and support such dreams. That was the key to it, because a lot of visionary and unique designers back in time in the 90s and so on, they were far step ahead from the construction technology, and they couldn't get their dreams to happen. While a place like the UAE, and particularly Dubai, managed to get that in. And on an individual level, I had my fair share of doing amazing proposals and few buildings that actually seen it through and built, and people are living there and so on. So it's a period that I think everyone can relate to it as the experimental, dream big period of time.
Right. And what do you think? I mean, you touched upon the fact that developers were clearly motivated, but why do you think that was?
I think it's probably the same motive as any emerging market, any country in the world that wants to, elevate itself and be better. And in this country, the leaders had pushed towards this, I want to be the best. I want to be the number one. And second, has no place. And with that, it motivated people to do something for the city, to make it the place to be in the world. At that time, as I said, I choose the word experimental because they didn't know if it's going to work or not.
Right.
Some of it did exceptionally well. Some of it did not, and improved over time as we have nowadays. But I think it's the key about providing something to the world and to the people of the UAE that has never existed before, and also make a name for themselves. There's nothing wrong with that,
right?
In a way.
Right. Which then sort of brings an end to the good times, as it were, the experimental time. For people, again, who were not there during 2008, because there's a lot of references with guests on the podcast who make or rather draw parallels from the time that we're in at the moment, given the entire pandemic and 2008. And people still say that the pandemic wasn't as bad as 2008. I want to get your thoughts on that.
The thing about 2008 and the big crash in the market, the main issue with it was the first thing. Like you didn't have experience before. And for the developers that didn't have contingency plan or a way to mitigate any financial losses or maintain stability, had suffered so much. And obviously with that, you've got the domino effect. The architects suffer, families suffer. Everybody had suffered along the way. And the difference comparing it with now is that when people start to foresee any drop or any change or any instability, they immediately bring in their plan B or their defense mechanism. But at that time, there were a lot of young developers, very ambitious, but never had that sort of experience to get themselves out of the trouble. Right. And it has nothing to do with how big or small you are. It just had something to do with if you have faced it or not.
Right.
And that is the key difference in my views of why currently it's much better in a sense of how the business is. We kind of hit the pause button at the moment versus a total crash, a total lack of cash flow, issues with, payment, getting materials and contractors demobilizing. It was a lot of, for a lack of a better word, a mess in that regards. But now we don't have a mess. We have a choice. I decided not to continue with my plans until I see how the market will react. Right. And that's a completely different thing.
Right. Having a choice makes it, like you said, a lot more better for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we are in the pandemic, like you said, we've hit a pause to an extent, out of choice, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Where do you, and by you, I would also sort of get P&T into it as well. What's the next 12 months looking like?
Well, we've noticed a different approach in sort of how business is moving forward in the past 6 months, and which would lead me to conclude or foresee what will happen in the next 12 months.
Is this something which is targeted or associated to a particular industry or a typology, or just across the board?
It's across the board. And I notice that people start to use that pause period. I'll refer to it as a pause period by doing their due diligence.
Right.
So at the moment, it's the planning time. It's the thinking time. It's how we can, when we hit the resume button, get things done properly. So we are involved in a lot of research at the moment. We are involved in a lot of master planning works. We are involved in sort of vision approach along with marketing teams, along with, sort of supported research with universities and institutes. And that helps the developers get a better picture. So when it's time to resume, which I would quite comfortably feel that by Q3, 2021, we will see major developments coming back to life, but it will be different kind of major developments. It will be to cater more to our current needs. It will be well thought through, and I wouldn't see any sort of issues along the way of either design phase and construction phase, and hopefully operation, and ultimately the success for clients. So this is in a nutshell how I feel with the next 12 months in the industry across the board. If all types of buildings, all sort of businesses, but I'm referring, because it's P&T, I'm referring to the large scale side of, the industry.
Right. And when you say that, plans are more well thought through and so on, is this on general principle, just having more time to do them right? Or do you see a lot of, when you say our needs, are you talking more about things which have been brought up due to the pandemic in terms of, social distancing or, different materiality because of, touch surfaces and things like that? Is it more of those kind of factors impacting the program, or is it just having more time to do it correctly?
I think we cannot completely ignore the pandemic because it was a key factor in what I'm about to say. I think we all now realized how health is a very important thing for everybody. So even though humanity faced a lot of challenges, and this is one of them, but we will defy it and we will go through it because we've been there for a long time. Having said that, there will be an impact and we will still do few things to maintain our health. So I would keep that as possibly the lowest share in what I'm saying. But the biggest share is truly about the importance of getting things done properly. It's about understanding that the planning and the design and the theoretical parts or the drawings, the analysis, the research, making key decisions are far, far more vital than they used to be and will only make construction a lot smoother and operation, which many people tend to forget about the moment they hand over the key. I think it's a game changer in that sense that architects would always talk about, we need to do things properly. And the developer has this ability, I want to finish and I want to have this operational. And now we're getting closer to the point in the middle, if not even closer towards the architects who are getting things done properly.
Right.
So this is the way I personally feel it's going to be in the upcoming period with experienced developers.
Right. I think that's, for designers listening in, that's ideal. That's what everyone wants. That's what everyone wants to be part of as well. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good times ahead.
It's a true dream. We all fight for the cause.
Right. So another reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because when I was researching you to bring you on, I noticed that you've been with P&T for quite a while. And when I say quite a while, of course, it's relative. But for the region, which is so transient, you tend to not see a lot of people in roles for more than 4 years, 5 years, perhaps. But you've been with P&T for quite a while. I'll have you give us the actual numbers and so on. But the question that I get from a lot of young architects is they don't see how they can maintain longevity in a firm. And I know it's a big topic with a lot of factors and a lot of angles to it. So if you can maybe walk us through, as if you were talking to someone who's just graduated, how do they go about maintaining longevity in a singular firm?
It's a very good question. And I hope many people would benefit from what I'm about to say. Firstly, it's something that I live by. I've always wanted to find the right place where I can spend a lot of time and do something tangible. So that was always something that I set my sight on from the very beginning. I started with a local firm that taught me a lot, but I realized it's not the place to be. And P&T, actually, believe it or not, knocked on my door, not the opposite way. And as I start to look into the P&T history, and it's a firm that has been there for 150 years, I start to feel the connection with the company. I joined them in 2007. And I've been with them now, so it's about 14 years, or 15 years thereabouts. And I quickly realized from the people that are here, this is the place where I can invest. So your judgment is the first thing that you need to have, if this is the place to invest or not. It's somehow like a marriage. You have to foresee that, yes, this is the place to be. This is what I want to invest. And as soon as you get there, you don't hold back. And that's what I did. From day one until today, I'm the very same person with the very same motivation. I come in the morning 15 minutes before time. I do everything I want to do. And on time, I keep on working hard until the time I go. And with that, we tend to, as architects, think of singularity. But here in P&T, it's all about the team. It's all about the collaboration. So the more my supervisors at the time and the managers and so on start to see what I'm putting into it, they start to give me credit for it. And that was just material for me to feed on. I've got more ambitious. And the more I got ambitious, the more they gave me. And then it became this sort of relationship start to really flourish. So it's not just on my side. The part that I have control over, which is the hard work, the passion, and so on, I put it in 100%. And they kept on helping me along the way.
Right.
The thing also about P&T, which I'm very, very fortunate about, is that people in the company don't hold back. Their doors are always open.
Right.
So there is nothing left to chance. If you choose not to know it, it's just because of you. But if you want to learn and you want to know, there are multiple sources.
The information's out there.
Yeah. Exactly. And with that, it went through, all the way. P&T believes in longevity. I personally wanted that so hard. Right. So it worked out very well.
Right. It was a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's, I was even told that halfway through. One of the managing director, we were sitting in one of the awards ceremony for one of our projects. And he said to me, you resemble what P&T is all about. So this is a turning point of your career now. If you want to continue, you can go all the way. Right. And it's something that everybody wants to see because it's about the reward that you get in all the hard work that you put in.
Right.
So for me, P&T is the ultimate place to be. There might be other places around. I'm not aware of them, but P&T for sure is the place for me.
Right. Do you think, again, I like the way that you approached it in the sense that you can only control what is in your control, and hard work and dedication and passion being one of those many things. How important do you think self-awareness is?
That is a very, very good question. Self-awareness is probably a fundamental thing in your journey. We all tend to get carried away. We always miss it, but it's something that you have to, in every milestone, stop and kind of be self-critical on what you do and evaluate yourself before anybody else does. You need to be aware of what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. Sometimes you'll be told, and most of the time it's about your own observation. And the thing that would help the most with it is the urge of always being better. So you'd always look back and say, okay, how to do this better? Oh, that's the way, because I feel like I was weak there.
Right.
And as soon as you get in there, you don't need anybody to tell you that you're weak there.
Right.
So self-awareness here really defines your own story of success.
Right.
Okay. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. It's a concept which is really difficult to encapsulate, but it's what I try telling a lot of the young listeners as well, that even if you don't have anyone telling it to you, it's in your best interest to just be a little self-reflective, a little more analytical. As architects and, master planners, I feel like there should be some sort of structure and brief to, your own career path in a sense.
Yes.
You kind of at least want to know what the key parameters are that you want to achieve, which I think is brilliant and something which you've done clearly very well. Whilst, yes, P&T and you were a good mix, I'm pretty sure the most obvious question that everyone has is, what if it's not? What can I do if it isn't?
Well, I think I've somehow answered this question at the very beginning when I said I joined a local firm where I learned a lot and I will always be grateful to it, but it wasn't the place for me. And hence you've got to change, because if you're not happy, if you know that this place is not going to exploit your whole potential and you are ambitious in that regards, then you're holding yourself back. And self-awareness and, being critical about, your own success would have to kick in at the time and tell you, look out, go. Particularly for young people where they don't have commitments, they don't have, families dependent on them and so on. Obviously, everyone has their own circumstances and their own judgments. But at some point, you've got to hit the pause button and think, what's the right thing for me? And look around and trying to find it. Even if it takes your whole career to find it, it's still the last few bits that you're going to enjoy at the end will be worthwhile the whole journey.
Right.
I fully say to people, you've got to be in a place where you're appreciated, where all your hard work is being noticed, and it pays off.
Right. Agreed. Completely. a bit of a divergence then from our current topic. When you say hard work definitely is one of them, as architects, everyone listening knows that our working hours are slightly longer than most people. And as such, a big topic of discussion, which always comes up, is the whole work-life balance. Obviously, someone like myself, I feel like I'm still not at a point where I need to maintain a lot of balance. Like you said, the commitment someone like myself would have is not as much yet. However, it is a much more bigger problem if you were to have a lot more commitments, in the sense of you have a family and you have, other commitments outside of work and so on. So for someone like yourself who's been in leadership positions, been in a firm for so long, it's kind of a multi-pronged question. So, feel free to answer it in whichever way. But number one, I guess, would be, is there such a thing as work-life balance to begin with? Is that even real? And the second one would be, how do you go about just approaching the entire topic?
Well, I can only speak about my generation, because the current generation, the millennials or Generation Z or so on, they have different needs, which we can briefly talk about. But about my generation, work-life balance can absolutely be achieved. And as long as you define it, not defined by somebody else, right, and not certainly defined by your working hours and the hard work you're putting. How so? If you are passionate about what you're doing, then there is a big factor of enjoyment in what you're doing. So it's not entirely eating up your life, because there is a whole joy into it.
Right.
However, the moment you stop the work, the balance got to kick in, and it got to kick in right.
Right.
In the way I found this balance is that I always wanted to work during the week, and I don't want to have any discussion or any sort of distraction when I was at the early stages of my career. But in the weekend, it was the ultimate opposite. If I was meant to have deadlines that would extend to the weekend, I would immediately go into the planning phase and add these hours within the week, no matter what, to avoid having anything on the weekend. And in the weekend, I would just go in and have all the things that I like that are away from the business, and I literally switch off. Having done that at the beginning, it was very difficult, particularly at a young age, to say no to your boss.
Right.
Saying, and actually look at him and say, no, I am confident I will finish this. And it was hard. I failed many, many times, but it only gave me the courage to, as you went through your career up the ranks and the responsibility increased, there became, I had this ability to say, that's it, switch off. But it's got to be fluid, in a sense of, you can't apply it per day, or you can't apply it per week or whatever, as your responsibilities obviously grow. But then your day got to be like that. Okay, it's the weekend. I know I don't want any distractions, but business needs me.
Right.
And immediately you do an offset somehow to balance off. It's all about, I feel, it's about mental health. And it's all about the awareness of, what you truly need, rather than ignoring it, because we all want to avoid burnout.
Right.
And whether or not you're passionate about what you're doing, you need to fuel that with rest. You need to fuel that with activities. You need to fuel that with many, many things that you like.
Right.
It could be, even it could be as, reading about architecture.
Right.
But you manage to mentally separate that.
Right.
From work. There are many passionate architects that by others, they are classified as workaholics, because everything revolves around architecture. Right. But as far as they're concerned, within it, they manage to separate between work and painting, their own buildings or others' buildings.
Right.
But as far as everybody's concerned, it's still within architecture.
Right.
So of course it can be achieved as long as you can define it yourself.
Okay.
Again, it's my take, and I think it's a generational thing. The young generation at the moment would have a different take about this, because their whole approach towards hard work is different from us. They can do more damage with technology than we can, with a pen,
Right,
if you know
right,
what I mean.
Right.
So I urge everyone to try and to define it. But the bottom line is, it is achievable. And I realized it more the more I ended up having a family and having a young girl. I realized, having that time, I can apply it now much better. It makes you more organized, and you somehow can achieve it all.
Right. This is then a bit of an abstract question. Do you think architecture and design is a lifestyle career? Because what I mean by that is, without any offense and with all respect to other disciplines and other, careers out there, architecture and designers tend to have a very difficult time switching off. And a very good example is, as I was walking up the building, I'm just looking at, staircase details and, the overall experience and, proportions and things like that. So in a sense, you don't really fully switch off in that sense. So I'm just trying to get your opinion on it. Do you think architecture and design is a lifestyle career, that it actually is part of your lifestyle?
The simple answer is yes. It is a lifestyle, but it's not just for architecture and design. I mean, there are a lot of professions and, and sports and things like that has the similar nature. And with the modern or the current approach to things and trying to get as close as possible to perfection, everything has to become a lifestyle in order to achieve an ultimate success, if you wish to be that kind of person. But architecture in particular, which I can talk about, the first thing they teach you at school, they tell you, if you don't know anything, go and observe. You don't need to look, in a book or in a magazine to learn things. You're surrounded with things. And architecture started with, proportion, observing, looking at the human body, what is the golden proportion, what's this and what's that. So it's something that it's not about switching off. I think there is no switching off. I think the sort of being disconnected is about the work issue, the politics, the framework that we all fit in. You gotta sort of switch off from that. But if you're truly passionate and you're a designer or an architect or a master planner or interior designer, and you truly like it, you always think of every moment as an opportunity. You don't look at it as, I'm still working. You look at it and say, that's the color that I was trying to,
exactly.
look for. What is it? Look at this space. It's ambient. Is really good. That's what I want to create. But it's not, some people may see it as an obsession, but I see it more positive for passionate designers, for the ones that want to make something. They've got to keep evolving. It's like songwriters or musicians. They always look for that tune. They always look for that, something. It doesn't mean that they are sort of not switching off. Just love it so much.
Right.
They've got to switch off when there is a moment and they need to be present.
Right.
But it is absolutely lifestyle, and that's why I started saying yes, because you summarized it right away in one word.
Right. Well, I mean, I know that people kind of fall on the fence about it, especially students who sort of, get in touch with me, especially when they're into, first, second year, and they're like, is this how it's going to be? Like, is it really going to be, the hours that we put in and studio and all that? And I say, yeah, you guys have it easy. It gets worse. It gets a lot worse, but then it gets better. Of course, it's worse in the sense that if you look at it as work, like you said, it's just going to make life so much harder. But if you don't see it as work, I think that's all the difference in the world. Yeah. Since we have you on the show, I want to also pick your brains about the business side of things, because given that you've been in P&T for so long, you've definitely been a designer for sure. But now, most definitely, you're also looking at how the business in the region sort of operates and the kind of work you want to be doing and all of that. So if we can maybe talk about, how does a designer make that pivot? Because it requires a different mentality, probably. It requires definitely, newer skills, maybe an accounting course or something of that nature. I mean, I don't know, I'm just spitballing at the moment. But for designers who are perhaps like myself, mid-level, looking to, make that transition into management, what are the sort of skills that you found in your journey, which you think are necessary?
I think it's a natural evolution and a progression of career anyway. If you somehow, you don't have a choice. You've got to get into the management. No, you have to. And there are different types of management. It's not just management as running the business, managing teams and managing time are probably far more important than running the business, because running the business, you have one or two opportunities for everybody in the office.
Right.
But managing time, managing efficiency is something that, everybody can do from whatever level. And you touch base is a very good point. When you are at the mid-level, the good news is that management is not expecting you to jump into managerial level, but it is the right time to start thinking about the managerial level. And I think some people, courses would work for them. That doesn't work for me, for sure. So at this stage of your career, you've got to see what's the best for you. What worked for me was observation and asking many questions, but observation, and observation. You see how people that are successful in that regards are doing it, and you try to become somehow their student, whether they know it or not.
Okay.
Until you get to the point where you may ask them to be your mentor. Some people would learn that through, if they want to get accreditation with, the RIBA and so on. They teach you a little bit about that, about time management and so on. But it's something that consumes you. And the more you do it better, particularly with time management, the more time you will have to do what you like. Because there is nothing worse than you having a deadline. You've got a lot to do. You want to have a clear mind to design, and you have 3 team members sitting there waiting for their next task. Obviously, we all would like to have initiative, resourceful staff members that would just, find things immediately and give a hand to anybody.
Read my mind and
yes.
Go do it.
Read my mind, but not everyone is like that, and it is your responsibility. So for me, time management comes on top of everything, and it's learned by observation, by being organized. By now at mid-level, you already know what is important in the process and what has to be done at the early stages, and you've got experience enough to know what are the boxes that got to be ticked before anything else.
Right.
So for some people, fortunate like myself, that I work in a firm that has a process established long time ago and tested many times. But if you are in a startup or a small office, or there is a room for suggestion, suggest your own way. Start with that. If it gets criticized, it's like a design idea. If it gets criticized, you would know how to do better next time. But there is also room for suggesting a process, a managerial process. Ask yourself a question. How can you manage people? Are you confident enough? Can you stand in front of them and give them guidance? When to step out? When not to be controlling is very important. So as soon as you set the parameters where things should go, you would be able to manage. And at all sorts of level. One person, your own work, a team, multiple teams, hopefully
stakeholders
whatsoever. But if your target from the very beginning that you want to be a managing partner in a company, then you've got to start at the very early stage. And I also would suggest a business course, because in the business course, they would probably teach you how to run a business, financials, what to worry about, what not to worry about, what's your running expenses and things like that. And not just in the construction part of things, because that's an obligation of every architect, I feel. But to run a business is a completely different ballgame. You do less of architecture than anybody else.
Right.
But your knowledge got to be there. And you got to be people's person. You cannot shy out from facing things. And most importantly, you've got to understand you're the first person in front of the cannon, in front of the storm. How are you going to deal with that? Are you strong enough? Are you, have the ability to fight almost every day?
Right.
Even if you're innocent and things comes, your way, one day you would be standing in court. You need to build it at early stage. But as I said, those are the minority because there are not enough positions in many companies to be the managing director.
Right.
However, you can always reach what you want if you demonstrate it.
Right.
So yeah, that's somehow my take on management because it goes beyond just one position, I feel.
Right. I think you touched upon an interesting topic about startups as well, because that's a different ballgame entirely. And, with the pandemic, we've seen a rise of a lot of, firms that have now decided to obviously downsize. But then as a side effect, you have a lot more boutiques now opening up, doing really purposeful, very niche, very specific work. But again, they're designers who have now just been, pivoted into this entire ecosystem of business, which definitely takes a lot of learning for sure. I guess my next question to you would be a bit more towards projects. And this is a bit fun because I always like starting off with because your career has been so long. I know that you probably won't have an answer to this, but I'll ask anyway. A project which stood out for you and why?
Yeah, that is a very difficult question. Okay. In general, what I like in projects truly, is not just about how they look or the way they function or the way just how they, they relate to people, because these are given aspects should be there regardless. So as we establish this, the project works for people, profitable for the developer, looks good, adds to the environment and all this are key. But a thing that recently started to, become more important for me, like I really enjoy it, is how it's put together.
Right.
And we're all suffering from these shortcuts.
Right.
There are multiple buildings that I personally like. Sharjah recently started to produce quality buildings in that regards.
Great.
There is a new library building that I particularly visited last January as it opens its doors. And I personally, subjectively, I like the design, but objectively, the way it was put together was exceptional.
I think I know which building you're talking about. Because I was there about 2 weeks back, and I was literally sketching sections and wondering, where are the columns here? But yeah.
As soon as an architect you start wondering about things, that means the person that did your job kind of like hit the nail on the head.
Right.
But also, if we go back to the point of, the little details that probably not seen by normal people.
We call them muggles. We call them muggles. It's fine.
Yes.
The non-believers.
Yes. Those are the ones that, you feel really the quality of the building, and only time will prove that this building is quality.
Right.
We happen to P&T to work on a project on the Palm, the 5 hotel and resorts, and this building has sort of an approach towards the immaculate interior design approach. We designed the architecture to be like a frame of work. You could do anything. The design of this building changed like 30, 40 times within it.
Right.
But the interior design comes in with this sort of total quality. Everything is well spent. Every corner comes in very well together. And in many areas, particularly in public areas and things like that. So you probably have noticed that I kind of didn't give you an answer, but it's
that's fine. I very rarely expect an answer, but it's always nice to kind of see where your headspace is at. Yeah.
Right. No, but it is truly about how things are being put together, and it's, by the way, it's not about the architects, because most of us in the industry, and particularly the ones in Dubai, know how to design things to a very high level, and you do a lot of good detailing. It's up to the client to keep it and spend the money, or, listen to the contractor who wants to take a shortcut and want to take it out.
Right.
And this is a moment where I'm sure my fellow architects feel jealous when you see a building being put together and have the client have their backing into it and not bringing the term value engineering, because it's just a big blanket of cost cutting. It's not value at all, but it is that quality that you come into the space and you feel, wow, this is something here to stay.
Right.
And again, if you can possibly relate that to my previous answer about longevity and wanting things to last longer.
Right.
So it's my mindset, I feel, towards this topic.
Okay. Interesting. We talked about, the buildings that stood out for sure. We can both agree there's a bunch of buildings that don't stand out. And I don't want to take names and talk about projects in particular, but if you had to pick one thing which you see designers doing wrong or end products just not getting right, if you had to pick one overall theme even, what do you think that would be?
I think firstly for projects, the ones that don't work is the ones that don't serve purpose, the ones that don't bring value. And we all understand the challenges. You cannot bring value in every single aspect of a project, but at least that is your intention. So it hurts me seeing projects, particularly commercial projects, that are meant to bring profit to the client and they don't because of bad design decisions. I don't like public projects when the user comes in last.
That's a bit of
it's happening all around in some buildings, and it's heartbreaking. And it could go from as simple as you have an open space in front of you, the landscape, but not a single bit of shade. That wouldn't have cost you much, but would have got this place to work. So what is the purpose of having it and spending money to have it? And these are the things that it's truly heartbreaking, because it takes less than a week to kind of agree on what's important before you put the space up to life. Apartments that with the wrong orientation, offices with wrong orientation, places that that are livable but with terrible conditions in terms of particularly ventilation, amount of daylight that comes in, or that places that you've got to leave your air condition running constantly. There are many projects that you see condensation on the ceiling because of bad insulation, because of, wrong choice of material. I think I wouldn't point the finger at one person. I think it's the obligation of everybody, from the designer that puts things in the drawings, from his site team that should go and keep fighting for these things, for the client being knowledgeable about the construction, not just business, and being able to understand, or having a representative that understands about these things and tell them, no, this is fundamental, you cannot take it out, to a contractor that is not there to make profit out of shortcuts, but to make profit out of good work. And it's a team's work. I may drift here for a moment because I've never thought of architecture as one person getting credit. It's a team's work. I don't think it exists anymore. One person cannot do it all. And same thing holistically on a project. Architects don't get credit for it on their own. Not the contractor, not the client, not the interior designer. It's everyone. And this happens not by awards, not by the people judging the buildings from out there, but from the users. And then it's a win-win for everybody. But it's all about ticking the box of what is the purpose of that building. I hope this answers your question, because there are a lot of gray areas in that sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it is the responsibility of everyone to push harder, even if it's beyond their scope. And that's a key thing, because people tend to think, okay, this is my scope, I'm going to stop there. But there is no harm of you as an architect flagging things and saying, look, this is not right. I know I have no control here, but please look after that. I think it's a responsibility for everybody.
Right. I agree. I think that if everyone sort of gave the amount of attention, due diligence, and I guess it all kind of winds back to if contractors were self-aware and wanted to do the best possible work. And no, I mean, but that applies to everyone, of course, even clients, for example, if their motivations are correct and if, they've done things like risk assessment and so on. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that's an overall theme then that.
Absolutely. I tell you, we in P&T have, to the limited knowledge that we had back in the history, we've always tried our best to create buildings that last for a long time, that are environmentally friendly to the construction technology that we had,
right,
to all the decisions that we can do at the time from, choice of material, orientation, and this and that. And as the awareness grew towards, environment and so on, we evolved as well, and we incorporated sustainability process and net zero and many, many approaches in that sense. But we couldn't bring that fully to practice unless clients start to come in.
Right.
And they start to say, I want to push that forward.
Right.
And they made you, deliver your full potential. And for that, I will always say it's a team. It doesn't matter who starts. It will always be the client starting with his vision, the architects reflecting that, and then the contractor building it. And obviously the people coming in to use it. But it's a team. If anybody thinks it's not a team, then I'm afraid they would be in denial.
Agreed. I may take a minute because I'm thinking. I've gone down a big rabbit hole in my mind, I think.
I have that ability to push people out of their structure. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. As we, wind down towards the end of this episode, I guess I just have one final question for you. Or maybe two. No, I think I'll sneak this one in if it's possible. As a listener of the show, you probably know this question, I would think. Mm-hmm. So you may have had some time to think about this. I don't know. But the question is the utopian case. And the utopian case is you get a client who has an X amount of land in Dubai. To give it a bit more context, that comes to you and says, Mahmoud, this is what I have. It's 1 square kilometer, hypothetically, how much ever you need. Here's a blank check. Here's the resources you need. Happy to go any direction you want, but my only brief is that it needs to add value to the city. What do you build or what do you design?
This, first of all, I didn't expect that question. So no thoughts about it whatsoever.
Take your time. It's fine. Take your time about it.
First of all, it's getting the blank check and the resources. This is remarkable.
This is utopia.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like, like a kid, you take them to the candy land and say, go and buy everything. And you get stuck. It's like, where to start?
Where do I start?
Where to start? I think the first thing that I would do, personally, I would immediately jump into market analysis. Immediately, to get to know what the people require. Because now that you have someone without a specific vision of what they want, and you're going to do a tailor-made sort of project for them. So the first thing that you would do is you do something for the people. I personally am a big fan of bringing people together in a way that people that are uncomfortable socially wouldn't feel uncomfortable, would feel that, no, I can actually go there safely. So the first thing that I would possibly do is a big community space. Now, what that is, it could be a place like as big as Central Park. I don't know.
Right.
But it's a place that would bring people together. And when they are there, it's not just that they feel comfortable and they live their lives in a more comfortable way, but it's more of having everything at their fingertips. Because, again, you said it's in Dubai, to bring more context to it. The people of the UAE in general, and UAE and Dubai specifically, tend to value their time. We all believe that we can do better with our time. So with that, I don't want to waste it going to the shop. I'm going to buy it online. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So I spare time to do what I like. And I want to create that space or that building that people would just enjoy themselves without having any worries, without having any sort of wonder, I have to go somewhere else to get what I want or feel comfortable. And most importantly, it has to be an example of environmental design, because I just can't see more buildings that take from the environment than they give back. So it would be more of a project that A, caters for people, B, caters for the environment. And I know this statement might not be the favorite for everybody, that I'm putting environment second, but it's all about the people at the end of the day. This has been our approach from the very beginning of the civilization and the way we approach it. And now we just have to go hand in hand with nature. And most importantly, with time, we all find this connection with nature is very important, and health. And I want this place to feel like a safe place.
Right.
We all now, some of us like to go to, the mall. They say, I wouldn't go now. Because of the pandemic and so on. But even before that, some people would say, no, I'm not going to the mall now. There are too many people. I'm not going to find a parking spot. I don't want any of that. I want to create a space, if it's a utopian approach where everything is possible, then there are no worries in that sense. And hopefully the client would make a bit of revenue on the side, because at the end of the day, they would need to do that.
It's a undeniable factor.
It is. And it is something that P&T had stood out through its history of delivering profitable buildings, even though they are out of the box thinking. They don't necessarily need to look ugly, or efficiency here means that you lost the joy in designing the buildings. Again, as a case, the 5 resort on the Palm is so profitable. We have exceeded the business model that the client have put in by about 15%.
Wow.
That is a lot of money. The client was so happy when we presented that at the beginning, and more so when it actually materialized.
Right.
So profitability is something that goes hand in hand with my firm's design approach.
Right.
So yeah, that would be, I guess, the
utopian answer.
Yeah, I guess so. I couldn't give you an answer because I feel that was my thinking process, by the way.
But I think you sort of did. I think most designers listening to that in their mind already have a bit of a rendering going on, like
possibly
a couple of trees here, and sunken seating. You never know.
It's funny you said sunken seating, because I thought of that too. So
I feel like most of the designers also probably did, but that's again the whole lifestyle thing that you're just constantly thinking. So
yeah,
Mahmoud, it seems like you're definitely a designer which has given a lot of thought to not just his projects but also his overall career. Clearly, this isn't, at least in my mind, it doesn't seem like this just happened by mistake. It feels like it's something which you have definitely thought of, worked towards, and actually made it happen. So with that in mind, my final question to you is, what's next for Mahmoud?
Personally, my ultimate goal is to become so influential in the designs that I do and the approach that I do within the firm that I'm in as a starting point. So I don't want to just be a good designer. I want to be the ultimate designer one day, and I'm going to work hard for that. But that also means that hopefully these designs will be so also influential to the community that it speaks about itself. I like recognition. Everybody likes recognition, but my type of recognition is not truly an award by someone. Awards are great, and I truly value them, but it's more important that just you create something small, big, I don't care, but that people criticize it and talk about it and benefit out of that, whether socially or as a user or whatever. I want to become influential with the things I do. And I have achieved that to a certain extent. And I achieved it with the help with a lot of people. I've been very, very fortunate, Alan, with the people around me. But I feel there is way more yet to be done. And the beauty is that the architectural career, can go as long as you have the drive.
Yeah, I mean, most architects actually say that they really hit their stride in their 50s and 60s, actually.
Well, you know what? The more I'm not going to mention my age, but the more I grew into the profession, the more that this statement makes sense. And you know why? It's because you have built an amazing experience or library. Let's talk library. You've built an amazing library of ways out.
Right.
That your architecture start to become a frame of work. And I'm using this word frame of work. It sounds a bit industrial, but the reason why I'm saying it is because with technology nowadays, you've got to set up specific parameters. What do you want to achieve and how are you going to achieve it? And what are the contextual achievements that you want to get? Then dressing it up or producing it in different ways every time to cater for your client's needs and the site and becomes the only challenge. So I understand you need time. And that is something that a lot of people don't get. And I didn't get at the start of my career. I must admit, time. You have the energy and you want to just keep doing things. But some things need time. It needs to simmer. It needs failure. And now I am at a point where I've worked enough, hard enough. I failed a lot to be where I am. And now I want to use this to be influential in that regards, whether by helping someone get to where they want, help clients achieve what they want, be useful to my colleagues, to my company, in all aspects, if you know what I mean. It really, in this sort of my own story, there is a lot of success I see that I haven't achieved yet.
Right.
That is truly what would be what I want to do. There is a gentleman in the firm that he used to be the ultimate designer of the company in Hong Kong, and he designed most of the building in Hong Kong Central on the island.
Wow. Okay.
He's whether you like his architecture or not, but he's done it, and the way he's done it with such class,
right, that
I would say, my person that I look up to, that I would like to be him
right
one day, in that sort of charisma and wanting to be this, not what he did with his buildings and so on, because I'm writing my own story. I'm a different guy,
right?
But that on its own is admirable, and it's all about writing your own story without looking at others. You do what you do. People, the market, clients, your mentors and bosses will put you where they want regardless, because they are the observant. You are the ones that doing the work. So you're not stepping back to look at yourself all the time. So yeah, this is what I hope I achieve in the upcoming period.
I have no doubt that you will. I have no doubt. In all honesty, this was definitely one of the most inspiring episodes that I've had, at least for myself. And if that is the case, I'm pretty sure there's definitely at least one listener who has felt the same. So for that one listener, if they want to get in touch with you, talk about architecture, grab a coffee, whatever it may be, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, first of all, my door is open. It's my obligation. Now that I have more of a better time management, I can find time for that. So anytime. I can be reached over my LinkedIn. My P&T email is also available. I hope you can add it in the remarks.
Will do.
Yeah.
Will do.
My email is available. I prefer not to use my phone, because I like to read things and come back to you. And you have my word, I will always come back to you. I may not come back to you as an individual if I see a lot of requests. I may group people, but I will always help as much as I can. I have to admit, back in time, I didn't help as much. And some people needed my help and I didn't. So for that, whoever is listening, you have my word. I will be there as much as I can.
Awesome. And that's all we need in our awesome little community here. Just people helping out each other.
Yeah.
Mahmoud, thank you so much, man. This was awesome. Definitely going to have you back on very soon. I have a bunch of ideas in my mind, which we can go through off air. And yeah, just on behalf of the entire aForm team, thank you so much for, believing in our little vision and being part of it.
Thank you very much. I am the one that should be thanking you, because I think you're doing, and the team here, doing an amazing job for our architectural community. We don't have a voice. And I hope that this podcast one day becomes a platform where not just people and individuals talking about themselves, but I hope it becomes a place to unite all of us. You have managed to have some of my colleagues and friends on the show, and I'm sure they enjoyed it so much as I did today. It was absolutely remarkable, and I can only tell you, just keep going. You guys are doing an amazing job, and I hope we can collaborate in the future. As you said, I'll be looking forward to it. So again, thank you very, very, very much.
Definitely. And on that note, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormers, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being part of our journey, and thank you for the immense support we've been receiving for our episodes. It has and continues to be a very bumpy road, but we wouldn't want it any other way. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought you value, please share this episode with anyone who may benefit from it. But of course, if you loved the episode, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, send us a little DM, and we may just send you a secret link to a secret episode which we've been working on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. See you next time. Keep sketching.